Thank you for having me, first of all. I'm really looking forward to talking about some design system stuff, and hopefully some of you guys will find it a bit interesting as well. I'm going to be sharing some stories, practical tips, and hopefully there's some stuff that you can take away, use on your own projects. So first of all, who am I? I think I know some of you guys. Been to a few of these before. But I'm Liam. I'm a designer, developer, and Webflow project lead at MakeBuild. And I live out in the east of England with my fiance and our Labrador McAllister. And if you do know me, he's a big part of my. I'm one of those people that loves to talk about their dog and stuff. So you'll see him quite a bit. When I'm not working, I'm in the countryside or collecting records, tinkering with computers, that sort of stuff, and like nerd stuff. And I've spent the last sort of decade in the design and development industry. I started off as a print designer, and then went into more of a web role, and then got interested in development, and then ended up as more of a dev, but a bit of both. But it was this sort of hybrid background that led me into design systems, and now a huge part of my role is building design systems and Webflow component systems for in-house marketing teams to allow them to build their websites themselves, essentially. The bulk of it, we still do the really important stuff, but they do the marketing stuff. So before we dive in, I was just going to get a quick show of hands. Who works with design systems on a daily basis, whether that's clients or in-house? Quite a few, which is good. For those who maybe aren't as familiar with design systems, we'll just cover that really quickly. So I asked ChatGPT, because I did. So a design system is a comprehensive set of guidelines, standards, and reusable components that help teams create consistent and efficient websites and products. Acts as a single source of truth for designers and developers, ensuring that user interfaces are uniform and align with the brand's identity. I think that's pretty good. People tend to think of design systems more as a design thing because of the name, but in Webflow, this looks like a set of principles, variables, styles, components, all coming together to make a toolkit for marketers and developers to create nice-looking websites. So the first ingredient I want to share tonight was collaboration. And this stems off of one of the most successful projects I've had the pleasure to work on, which is Typeform.com. So Typeform collaborated with MakeBuild and Webflow to migrate from their existing site to Webflow. And this was a migration that involved 4,000 pages-ish, ton of integrations, a couple of locales. So it was a really big migration. It went down without too much of a hitch. No downtime, SEO improvement, some really good stats, which I'll share a little bit later. But the thing that stood out the most was the collaboration between all of the parties involved, all of Typeform's agencies, the Webflow team, our team, all working together to build something really cool. So I wanted to go back to the start of the project and share some stories about how we encouraged collaboration and how that collaboration really paid off. So when Typeform came to us, they had the sort of typical story of a marketing department at the moment. They had an overly complicated tech stack, an outdated CMS, and a heavy reliance on developers. So even basic requests went into a development pile and took away resources from the product. So what we did, this is a quote from Typeform. Their site couldn't keep up with their ambitions. So the marketing team felt locked out from their site, and they had a team of world-class designers and copywriters that just felt restricted by their uncreative tools. So we kicked off a project in the MakeBuild way, which is a ton of sticky notes, Sharpies, pictures on the wall, an in-house workshop with both teams all in one room. The session lasted about a day, and we really dove into the current platform, the frustrations they were facing, and what they thought a good migration, or we all thought a good migration would look like. And the outcome of that was 3 goals: modernize the tech stack, give back control to the marketing team, and unlock the creative talent at Typeform. As design system lead on the project, my sort of focus was the last 2. I left the modernize the tech stack to Dan and let him do all the techie stuff, and I just worked on the pretty stuff. So I set out on a mission to understand the current creative challenges and how we could unlock some of that talent. And to do this, we spent time with marketers, developers, their current developers who were from the product but working on the site, copywriters, anybody that we could get our hands on, and started mapping out some of their current workflows to understand how we could improve. And this is what their previous workflow looked like. So marketing and the design team would work on a project. Marketing would have this really good idea. The design team would try and work with the tools that they had available to deliver that, and it would go into a development pile. That development pile was shared with the product, so typically things would get prioritized, and eventually they would launch. As you can imagine, this process can be lengthy and is sort of inspiring for marketing and creative people. They want to get things out, they want to react to things in the market, and that lengthy process is not ideal. But our vision was a little bit different. We wanted to give them the tools they needed, so we proposed a modular component system of drag and drop blocks that the designers and the developers could use the designers and the copywriters and the marketers, could use to create their own pages. And these blocks would be simple enough to self-serve. Nobody at Typeform at the time knew how to use Webflow, so they needed to be sort of friendly for beginners, but flexible enough to allow for some creativity. So over the next several months, we continued the collaboration and we built an extensive design system that spanned over Figma and Webflow, and everything went good. The migration went good. They're still really happy with the platform, and we're still working with them. So like I mentioned, there were some good stats. There was 0% downtime, a 98% improvement in technical SEO score, and the one that really pleased me was the 3 hours to 3 days. So before, it would take them 3 days to get an idea developed. Now it's taken them 3 hours, and it was the creative people, it was the marketers doing it themselves. They were building things on the fly, and that was really cool. It's really cool the first day when you go into a project and there's like 10 people in there, all using blocks that you built. It's daunting, but it's cool. So that was a good project. It was all good. An example of just how good the system landed, a couple of weeks after we launched the project in January, they came to us and said, we want to do a Valentine's campaign. They only had a couple of weeks to get it over the line, but thanks to the design system, flexible blocks, they did a lot of it themselves, and it launched on time. They had a nice custom nav, they had a landing page, and it sort of all married together in a LinkedIn campaign, and it went down really well. And I think I speak for Typeform when this was the sort of oh shit moment that we could really react to things and do things really well. So that's collaboration, and it all paid off. But why is collaboration so important? The second ingredient is understanding. And these two are linked because you have to collaborate and work with your clients to understand what they need. So back in September, Dan was preparing for his Webflow Conf talk, and he dropped me a message in Slack asking one tip. So I thought I was on the hook. My tip was build for your client, not yourself. Dan replied, fire emoji, this is gold. Didn't get on the stage, but I thought I'd steal it back and have a dig at Dan. But I wanted to share another success story with you just to show how important the understanding part of that ingredient is. So earlier this year, we were approached by Sky to work with their Sky CSG team, which is an internal resource. And they make educational material for the Sky engineers, the Sky customer service agents, to educate them and keep them up to date on all of Sky's new products and services. But unlike Typeform, Sky already had a team of Webflow developers, some really talented people, and they'd built over 100 sites already in their workspace. So we didn't need to hold the hand or anything. The problem that Sky faced was a little bit different. They had a comprehensive design system for Sky.com that was built for a React front end, but they had no access to that in Webflow. So we needed to really help them bring all of those microsites that they built together in a sort of package that they could then manage a bit more. So I've just lost where I was then. All over. Yeah, so they didn't have any reusable components. They didn't have a design system on Webflow. So all of these sort of over 100 microsites that they'd built were sort of disconnected. The brand had evolved after they'd built some of these sites, so they were a bit left behind. And they were really hard to manage. So just like Typeform, we went to Sky HQ, which was a fun day out. And we kicked off the project by meeting the team in person. We met the key stakeholders. We found out their perspectives on what they wanted the project to be and the challenges that they faced. And together we established some targets. And those targets were speed up development time, improve brand consistency, and make a huge library of sites maintainable. Now we're going to try and find the cursor. There we go. Cool. So to achieve this, we set out to create a Webflow shared library that could be plugged into new and existing sites to act as a single source of truth. And during the 6-week sprint, we worked to translate the Sky.com design system into a Webflow shared library that could create a one-to-one brand experience across their internal and external experiences. As you can see, this wasn't a library of drag and drop blocks. It was a powerful set of classes, variables, and components that could be reused by experienced designers and developers to create these in-house microsites and save them time having to recreate the same patterns over and over and over again. Just like Typeform, though, we put in the time to really understand our client. We went through a lot of the same discovery process, but the end result was completely different. If you look at the two systems, there's a lot of differences, and how we used the Webflow platform was a little bit different. So the Typeform system is essentially a drag and drop experience designed for marketers in build mode. We use section components fleshed out with really obvious starting points. Most of the things that you need are already in the component, and you turn things off, turn things on, add in your text. We use slots sparingly. We love slots, but they can be a bit confusing for people that are new to Webflow. So we use them to extend lists, or we use like a media slot on a lot of components, so they can drop in a video or an image or a lottie or something. And we use component variants quite a bit to create a really sort of user-friendly and designer-friendly experience. So there's drop-downs. It's super easy to understand. There's little room for error. But on the other hand, on the design system that we created for Sky, it was a little bit more atomic. We created some really powerful components like loading spinners, modals, tooltips, etc. And this was to save developers time, not marketers. So we used a lot of attribute-based styling for sort of greater flexibility. We used a lot of slots to encourage sort of modular building. And we created more complex components that were a bit harder to use, a bit more sort of configuration. But once they were configured, they were great. Now imagine if we didn't do this groundwork with the clients to figure out what they actually needed. Just for clarification, these aren't real Slack messages. I can see Dan like, oh, if we just rolled out like a cookie cutter solution for all of our clients, we could have got some messages like this. The Sky team could have ended up with a marketer first system that felt restrictive and didn't really give them what they needed. And the Typeform team could have been left with a really complex system that landed them in the same position they were in before. They needed developers to build things. And I think this is one of the biggest challenges when building design systems or even sites for our clients. You really need to understand what they need, because you can deliver something that is completely not what they need. It still can be brilliant work, but just not quite right. So the third ingredient that I would speak to you about tonight is iteration, because design systems are great, just like websites, but they're never quite finished. You can do all the collaboration, you can understand your client down to the ground, but the first attempt might not always fit the bill, and also companies change, pivot, and things move on. So that means once the project is done, we don't just hand off the keys and ride off into the sunset. Instead, we stick around and continue to work with our clients to help them realize the full potential of their design system.
Love it.
So how do we iterate successfully? Well, first, we have to prepare for this iteration, and that happens during the discovery and the production phase of the project. We listen to our clients to fully understand their pain points, but we also listen to what they want to do in the future and where the company might be heading. Technology changes, companies grow, companies pivot, etc. So we need to be prepared for that. And to prepare for this change, it's important that we build a design system that is built on solid foundations and really organized, so that future changes can be minutes, hours, maybe a day, and not weeks. So how do you build a design system capable of change at pace? There's just two really quick ways. Obviously, there's lots of ways, but two different quick little ways that you can do that. This is Typeform's homepage. And it looks like it's probably a couple of components, But the first tip is to use an atomic approach to components. So this could be 2 components, but when we break it down, it's actually a ton. An atomic approach to components is basically using components within components within components. And we refer to this as atoms and molecules in-house. And what that looks like is these are sort of atom components. So we've got things like menu items, buttons, these little logo blocks, rich text, things like that, images. And we put those together to make what we call molecules, which is things like nav bars, action bars, the logo bar at the bottom. And these all come together to make our section components. And we do this because we can reuse elements across the whole site. So when a client needs to rebrand or change the look and feel, we can change a few different components, and it can really affect many components on the site. So some of the buttons and the sort of logo blocks on this site, there might be thousands of instances over tens of components. The second way is a solid variable setup, which is variables have been around for a while now in Webflow, but they've been around for a long time in the sort of CSS space, and particularly in Figma and with designers. So variables can be super good for managing sites and implementing change. So for those who aren't familiar with a sort of variable setup with primitives and tokens, this is a typical setup. We have primitives on the left, which is our sort of color palette. So we've gone from a numeric scale of 25 to 1,000, and that represents the different shades. And then we have a token on the right-hand side, which we give to a particular property, like text color. And this really helps because we feed our primitives into our tokens. And then if a client turns around one day and says the secondary text color needs to change, we can use this token across hundreds of different styles, and we can just change it in one place, which is the token. If a client decides that they want to darken their secondary text a little bit, we just change the primitive. We don't have to go to all of those different styles that we've used the sort of root hex code on and change those individually. So it can be really useful when the client does a rebrand or needs to make some changes. So they're the ways that we prepare for iteration, but how can you create an environment to encourage it? To create an environment that encourages iteration, you need to create some feedback loops. One of my favorite ways to create feedback loops is something that we do with our clients called office hours. And during these sessions, we invite our client's team to join a live call where we answer questions, gather feedback. We do a few live demos to answer any questions that we can answer on the call. And these calls give us valuable insights that we can feed back into our feedback loops to maintain an ever-improving system. And this is how one of those feedback loops sort of looks. We host a session or a regular check-in to identify pain points and challenges within the system. We then address these in 2 ways. We can upskill our clients with sort of Loom videos explaining them how to do things or how things work. We can provide documentation, or we can upgrade the system with new components or improving existing ones. Then our clients go away and they use it a little bit more, and then we start the process again. We host a session, we host a check-in with them, and we find out how things are going, and it's constantly evolving. So to sum up, these are our 3 ingredients. Collaboration, create an environment for collaboration, and where possible, meet your clients in person. It really helps to build that relationship. And spend time uncovering their pain points. Understanding, ditch the cookie cutter approach and take time to truly understand what your clients need and shape a solution to cater to them. And finally, prepare for change with a solid foundations and harbor an environment for iteration by sticking around and creating feedback loops with your clients. Thank you everybody for listening. I appreciate all your attention. I'm not sure if there's room for questions.
Yeah,
but
no, absolutely.
If not, if you want to chat design systems or get me to look at something you're doing for a second opinion, you can scan the code and book like a little call over lunchtime, and we can shoot the shit.
Excellent. I've got to say thank you very much, Liam. That was a masterclass in explaining complex things in just easy to digest ways. A summary of, I guess, learnings. We've been going through the same process, and bringing it all together, and having those 2 different approaches. I wish we had a way of having a crystal ball to understand what the client's actually going to do at the end of the project, where we create a system and then they don't use it.
Yeah.
Or we don't create enough system and when we should have. So that's a dilemma. How do you solve that dilemma? That collaborative bit at the beginning.
Yeah. I think this is what MakeBuild are really good at, is that discovery part of the process, getting everybody in a room, which helps.
The post-it notes.
Yeah, the post-it notes, Sharpie pens, nice lunch. Yeah.
Cool.
It's that process though, the startup process.
Any questions from the audience? Martin? Hang on, I'll come around this way.
Cheers. Yeah, it's just a slightly technical one, really. I noticed when you brought up the navigation, it looks like you're using like components for each individual navigation item. Is that right? Because I'm finding I've just started using slots quite extensively, similar to what you've done, but I continually run into the problem where the navigation just sits in a single header component, but it looks like you're being a lot more granular with it. Is that right?
Yeah, it changes depending on the style of the navigation. We try to break everything down to components as much as possible so that we sort of minimize the risk of one particular item going off. So in that example, each item is a component. Right. And then what we do, if it's a big drop down, which can be sometimes tricky to edit, we make the inside of the drop down another component, which then we can drop on another page and use that to edit the actual drop down section.
Cool.
But yeah, slots can be tricky as well because you can't change the tag of a slot to anything. So sometimes with lists it can be not as optimal because it's a div within divs instead of the UL or OL tagged.
Cool. Thank you.
I hope that answered your question.
Any other questions? Yep, we got one from Jimmy.
Cool.
Thank you for that, Liam. That's really cool. How long do you guys typically spend in discovery in comparison to like building out the system and then iterating?
Yeah, the Typeform one was quite a lot because we were migrating so much, so we had to spend a lot of time. Dan gave me like the masterclass in Sheets over the Typeform start of the project. But yeah, it's super important, with migration, but two, with design systems. You have to understand who's going to be using it, what they expect from it. It sort of helps if they've already got a system, because they can tell you what they hate about it. They can tell you what they love about it. Yeah, I don't think you can spend too much time. It's great. If the more time you've got, the better to really understand. I think it's typically somewhere that some people might cut time back to help the budget. But it can pay off in the long run, especially if it's a long-term relationship.
Good stuff. I think we need to keep moving, but thanks again, Liam.
Can we just unplug?
Yeah.